the facts coming out, any iota of truth on the allegations brought against you?
Well, first of all, the Constitution says I'm innocent until proven guilty. It's not just me. But I'm absolutely confident about the fact that I have done absolutely nothing wrong, and neither have any of my co-accused. I saw this coming the day we lost the election, and it was announced that the other side had won. I saw this coming. We all saw this coming. I refused to leave the country, just as I refused to leave the country in 2008 when I was accused of things then. And I said, and I told you and others at that time that I was innocent. It took me 7 years to end that matter, and I was declared innocent by the court. I have absolutely no doubt that at the end of this particular exercise, I will be declared innocent by the court simply because it is very obvious that this is a politically motivated allegation. All of them, not just this, but other allegations, which may come later, are politically motivated, and we've all been subjected to a media trial. And at the end of the day, the courts will determine the truth. And I have absolute confidence in the Nigerian judiciary, which is why I've refused to leave the country for many years now, I might add. I haven't left Nigeria since 2008. I've remained here. And I will never leave this country or run away because of political persecution.
4.9 billion fraud charges brought against you and your co-accused, and one would be wondering that one of the charges is that you you knew that some of these funds were stolen from these funds are stolen, and you got those monies. Did you get any money for election or from anybody? For example, did you get money from the former NSA?
Look, let's be clear about this and let's get the facts right, because the problem here is this. Let me just start with the problem before answering your question. Salacious headlines in the newspapers are put out by agents of the EFCC in the press. And I know the two newspapers that they use all the time. I won't mention them here. And I know the two journalists they use all the time. I know them very well. And they'll put out these headlines, which are absolutely absurd, have no bearing to the truth, not even in terms of the allegation, let alone the substance of the matter. So that's the first problem. Nigerians are just given these salacious, mind-boggling figures. And, they are told by these newspapers, at the instance of the FCC, that so-and-so is guilty of doing this. And then it gets to a point where you have to prove your innocence before the world, and it takes a number of years to do that. That's the system here. That's the way the FCC operates. And that is not meant to be the case. Now, you have just said 4.9 billion. Nothing could be further from the truth. They may have written it in a few newspapers. They may have said so. But not even the EFCC have said that. Not even they have said that. Look at the charges. And now, I'm not diminishing the seriousness of the issue, but the allegation is that 1.5 billion naira was given to Mrs. Nenadi Usman, who was director of finance for the campaign organization, by a government agency, and that she mixed that money together with about 4 billion from private sources, campaign funds and so on and so forth. And then she now distributed that money to fund the campaign organization and also to fund the various states, all our operations in the states, all our zonal coordinators and so on and so forth, because the money came from that same account. Now, where the 4 point whatever billion comes from, I really don't know. Now, you asked a direct question, did I receive money from any government agency for my operations within the campaign? The answer is no, and neither has it been alleged that I did. What has been alleged is simple and clear, that our director of finance sent money out to the various directors, including me, from her own private account, our company account, for us to run our operations. Of that money, I ran my own particular directorate, the media and publicity. I was given only 10% of what I needed, very small, about 800 million naira to run a campaign for 3 months. And we utilized that money. We utilized it, and you can confirm this. We utilized this very effectively because we ran a campaign. You don't run a campaign with sand or stones. You run a campaign with money. And at the end of the exercise, we did not know one media house, whether it's a television station, whether it's a newspaper, for adverts, for jingles, for documentaries, for so many things that we had to pay for. We didn't owe anybody anything. And we have all the necessary receipts, we have all the necessary documentation to prove that. And by the way, in my own particular directorate, I audited everything that we did. We submitted our accounts to the auditor and to the presidency, and we were commended for all our efforts, which is more than any other directorate. So this is the position. I never received money from any government agency. The money that Nenadi Usman, the Director of Finance, received to run the campaign, to distribute, to give to all those that were involved in the campaign, she herself did not know the source of that money because, you know, people made contributions.
And you didn't know too?
Of course we didn't know. None of us knew. How could I possibly know?
And you didn't get any personal
How
money
could I
apart from the campaign?
Absolutely none. How could I possibly know? If, for example, you are running for president and you set up your campaign organization and the Director of Finance of the campaign organization, and you're asked to submit a budget, and you submit that budget, and the Director of Finance of the organization, together with the special advisors of the president on the campaign, Chief Tony Anini, tell you to submit a budget. You submit a budget to them, and they say, okay, fine, we approve this amount for your budget, and we'll send this money to you, and the money is sent to you. Now, will you then say to them, oh, by the way, where did this money come from? Was it government money? As a matter of fact, I did do that. That's the interesting thing. I put that question directly to the Director of Finance, and she assured me that the money came from private funds. She also said that I should open an account specifically for that purpose, which I did, and the money was sent there in 3 tranches. So I made that inquiry because I happen to be more intelligent than most people, because I realized the implications of getting involved with government funds. And at that time, I was still facing other charges, so, to do with government funds. I made that inquiry. She assured me that there was no such thing, and I believed her. And I also believed that she herself had no idea where the money was coming from, because people were just contributing money to this company to help President Jonathan win an election. So I can speak for myself. I can also speak for her. I can speak for every single person that was involved in that campaign, as far as I'm concerned, that none of us knew that there was anything to do with government funds when it came to the campaign. We were all assured that the money came from private sources, from contributions, from key people who were Jonathan's supporters, and indeed those people gave a lot of money out. And it is also important to note that nowhere has it been alleged that I, Femi Fani-Kayode, received money from any government agency, whether it is the NSA's office, whether it is NIA, whether it is the presidency or anywhere. Nobody has alleged that. All they're saying is that the Director of Finance forwarded some money to me and to others, and that they believe, or they are alleging, that she knew that that money came from a source which it shouldn't have come from.
Is any of the associates at large at the moment?
Any of what?
Your associate.
Which associates are you?
Do you know Olubodioke?
This man, this man, you see, this is the way they demonize people. You ask him that question. Don't ask me if he's at large.
No, because
no. You ask
Mr.
him.
Fani-Kayode, there are reports that
ask,
he's your associate.
He was my, listen, it's not just my associate. He was my chief of staff during the campaign. Now, his whereabouts, you ask him, not me, because I have been in detention for a very long time. I haven't seen for almost, a year or so, a year plus now. Whether he's in the country or not, I really don't know. I haven't communicated with him, I haven't spoken to him. And by the way, he's not the only one. You really don't expect everybody to hang around to face this kind of media trial. I'm not saying he's disappeared. I don't know his whereabouts. There are lots of people that cannot weather this storm because they are innocent of anything. What on earth could have done? Allegations are so, you can allege that somebody is breathing air and charge him to court. It's not a question of allegation. It's not a question of charging. That's not when you should be triumphant. You should be triumphant when you get a conviction. Yeah,
because, the allegation on that your associate, the man you call your chief of staff, is that there was a 24 million naira transaction from you with him, and at this moment...
Again, that is not factually true. That's not even the allegation. What they said, and they just added that as one of their charges, because, I'm obviously the target in all this. They simply said that Oke produced posters, and he paid the person that produced posters, that supplied posters. He paid the person that supplied posters. The posters were apparently supplied, and they were pasted all over Lagos and so on and so forth. And that somehow it was a conspiracy between me and him, and that because the money that came from Nina Dinsman was tainted, and therefore this was an illegal transaction. These are absurd charges, and we will defend them vigorously in court. What I object to, though, is this assumption that because an allegation is made, no matter how absurd it might sound, that it happens to be true. And then you now have to be explaining yourself to people. I will not go into the details of the case more than this, because what you asked me in the public domain, so that's fair enough. But In terms of the details of the case, you come to court when the case starts, just like I told others many years ago when I was charged before, and you will begin to see where the truth lies in this matter. Let me also say this, and this is very, very important, that had it been that, I chose to begin to say that, well, I paid, for example, Channels TV for an advert, or AIT, or Silverbird, or all the newspapers in the country, this is where we paid the money to, and they should go and get the money from them, or that, we paid for consultants and so on and so forth. By this time, all these people would also have been charged and they would have been asked to return money. I refuse to do that. I refuse to write anything about where we paid our money to. Because what is happening here is this. Anybody that received a penny out of the campaign funds innocently and did their job and provided a service, as all the newspapers in this country, we had adverts every day in every newspaper in this country. We had adverts all over the television stations. We ran a vigorous, effective, honest, and strong campaign, and we put the APC for the first time and their candidate on the defensive. That didn't happen until I got there. We did a good job. They spent 10 times the amount. Nobody's asking where they got the money from. But we did all that. The evidence is there. Now, if I had chosen to say, this is where we spent the money, this is where the money is, this is where the money was sent, and so on and so forth, I assure you, as they've done with every other case, they would have called all those people in and said, come and return the money, even though a legitimate, honest job was done by those media houses. Let me give you one example just before you come in. Just one example of this, of what's happening, because it's important that people should know. There was a particular case of a lady. When I was detained at the EFCC, I met her there. This lady supplied food for the campaign organization, and she got a contract, I think about 30 million or so on and so forth, to supply food for 3 months and killing cows every day and that sort of thing. And everybody ate the food, all those that came to visit us and all the people at Legacy House, and she did the job very, very well. At the end of it all, what happened? She was called in, she was detained for months by the EFCC, not just her, also her husband, to do with it. He was over 70 years old. The two of them were there crying every day. And they were told to return the money. And they said, well, where are we going to get the money from? We provided a service. We had no idea what the source of funds were. We know nothing about this. We did our job. These people were detained for months. And at the end of the day, they were not released until the husband went to go and look for 10 million naira. The day he said he could get it, that's when they released him. And that story, it applies to cleaners as well. People that were cleaning in that place were also detained. Anybody that got anything from anybody in the campaign organization, and you can say it was you gave the money to ABC, they will go and bring the person, they'll freeze all their accounts, freeze their wife's accounts, detain them, and so on and so forth. So you're hearing about my story because I happen to be a public figure. And I can defend myself in the public realm and in court because God is with me and I have the resources to do so. And I will do so effectively. And I will not be silenced about it. But there are hundreds, thousands of people in this country that are being subjected to this kind of ridiculous allegations and this kind of ridiculous conditions of bring the money back or else we're going to prosecute you. All right? And you don't get to hear their story.
Do you regret working with the Jonathan campaign?
Why on earth would I regret doing that?
Facing charges
That brings me no regret. Let me remind you, I'm not the only person that's been facing charges over the years since independence. Obasanjo faced charges. He went to prison. He came out to be head of state. The Buhari that's president today was detained. He was locked up for 3 years and he came back to be head of state. Not only that, Awolowo was jailed for 3 years. He came back to be leader of the Yorubas. Sir Ahmadu Bello was jailed for 3 months. He came back to become the leader of the North. The minute you start regretting actions for doing what you think is right, or the minute you start saying, I should never have done the right thing, then you're dead as a human being. Then you're no longer a man. Why would I regret? We fought a battle.